Welcome back, sports fans, to another long-awaited episode of Ballers to Balding, where, as always, we're going to have some strong takes and some weak follicles. If you sparked to today's offering, please like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram and Spotify. Don't put it off. Procrastination is basically just a huge gamble that in the future you're not going to be as lazy. And you probably will. You probably will. Been a while, Ross.
Cappy! Hey,
Good to see you.
what have you been doing? What have you been doing, big boy?
I was in New York. I went to New York and had the pleasure of hanging with some of our viewers at a meet and greet. It was great, including your lovely daughter, Alex, and her entire crew. So a shout out to them. Thank you for watching. And I got to tell you, man, they were bright, engaging, attractive group of young women. You know, they impressed me as a highly functioning group of alcoholics. Really. So they remind me a lot of us when we were young. I mean, maybe they just see tequila as a hydration strategy. I don't know. Either way, charming. Good to meet him.
Well,
How are you doing?
She was really psyched. All her friends, they were all very excited to be with the star of our show. So I'm sure.
I mean, don't give me that. You're the star of the show, Ross.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think I'm the sidekick. I'm the sidekick. I feel like Ed McMahon back in the day.
I think it's the opposite. But let's talk about some sports today,
We got a lot to cover. All right, let's do douchebag of the week, Ross. Who is your douchebag of the week?
Okay, well, I am very excited after a couple weeks to be able to tell you that Enes Kanter Freedom, 10-year NBA vet, is my douchebag of the week. Why is it? Well, let's give some context to why Kanter has thoroughly dominated this week's douchebaggery. So, Sophie Cunningham of the Indiana Fever, very popular WNBA player, gave an interview a few weeks ago in which she said that she does not believe that a biological man should play in the WNBA, that she, as a woman, should not have to play against a biological man. Now, that drew huge criticism from other WNBA players as well as coaches. And the reason for that is the WNBA as well as the NBA have always been all about openness and letting, very, very
inclusivity.
Thank you. So, as I said, this drew a lot of criticism. Enter Enes Kanter. What did he do? Well, he came out and said, hey, given that how the WNBA is and what their rules say, I am going to enter the 2027 draft because I identify as a woman. Of course, he does not, but he was trying to make a political point, I guess. Royce White, another former NBA player, said the same. Now, if that wasn't enough for Enes to try and throw himself into the middle of this and draw some attention, he then attended an Indiana Fever game versus the Chicago Sky. And of course, again, Sophie is on the Indiana Fever. And Enes was wearing a shirt which actually had a message on the front defining what a woman is. And he then proceeded to chirp at the Chicago Sky player, Natasha Cloud, during the game. Well, this caused Natasha to go absolutely nuts during a timeout and she started walking towards Enes, who was underneath the basket a few ropes up. So what did Enes do? He, instead of keeping a cool head, stood up and also started walking towards the court. Now, mind you, this is a 6'11", 270-pound man walking towards the court. He was then stopped by security in the Chicago arena and escorted out of the game. He was subsequently banned from Wintrust Arena in Chicago as long as he presents a threat, is what the WNBA said. Now, let's put aside the merits of this issue for a second, because I kind of understand some of Enes's points. I mean, let's think about it. I mean, we never want to discriminate against anybody, but the fact of the matter is, when you're talking about a WNBA team, you want the names Chubby and Woody to be the names of a mascot, not your power forward's penis in the shower. Similarly, you don't want at a post-game press conference for your coach to be saying things like, well, we're hoping the swelling of her left ball goes down before the next game. Moreover, do we really want a box score to say DNP, bruised scrotum? We just don't want that. So there's those things actually matter. But that's not what we're talking about here. The fact of the matter is that Enos had to put himself in the middle of this. He is starving for attention because there are ways he could have given a press conference, which again would have done the same thing, but not what he was doing. He could have made his point in a more subtle way. And the latest on this story is that Enos is now offering the WNBA leadership a debate between him and their leadership, which will be moderated by Caitlyn Jenner. Again, starving for attention. He's a douche. The way he approaches was as a douche, and regardless of what his position is, he handled it incredibly poorly. He is my douchebag of the week.
I see it. I mean, it's a very tough. You don't want to exclude anyone, but then again, it is the WNBA, and if anyone ever did come in who was trans and who was a great basketball player, it would throw things sideways. Now, while we're talking about this, I went to a restaurant in LA a couple weeks ago and saw something that I thought was funny, but has created a little bit of a stir. When you go to their restrooms, on the door of the men's room is a picture of Bruce Jenner, and on the door of the women's room is a picture of Caitlyn Jenner. I thought it was hysterical. But apparently it's caused a little bit of a kerfuffle.
Shocking. Shocking that would happen in
Kerfuffle.
LA.
I thought it was amusing. I understand. I'm with you. It's a tough one, but making it about yourself and all that stuff, it's obviously you wanted a lot of publicity. I'm going to be a lot quicker with my douchebag of the week because I think I'm going to be short and sweet because we have a lot to get to. My douchebag of the week is the Cowboys owner, Jerry Jones. Now, I don't know if you heard about it. This past week, the Cowboys had a joint practice with the Saints that turned into Fight Club. Punches were flying, helmets were sailing, guys were leaving perfectly good fights to run across the field and join better fights. I mean, finally, the Dallas Cowboys were showing some urgency in something. The NFL was not happy, though. They fined the team $500,000, which basically means, like, we'll take the publicity, but we got to say something. It's nothing. And owner Jerry Jones' response was, I'm going to have the players take care of it. They were the ones involved. I mean, this was actually the perfect chance for Jerry to do something smart, to eat the fine, to back his guys, and to build a little goodwill going into the season. He could have just said, hey, guys, you were being idiots. You got carried away. But you know what? I got this one. Now go win some games. The man owns one of the most valuable sports franchises on earth. And suddenly he's acting like the guy who refuses to split a check down the middle. He's like, okay, who had the helmet throw? I mean, what a douche. Look, the players were wrong, no doubt. But if you want to build good vibes heading into the season, you don't send Venmo requests to the locker room. So Jerry Jones is an owner. He's a GM. He's a president. Apparently, he's the head of collections. And he's my douchebag of the week.
Excellent. And
Right?
he is someone who could be on this list
Almost every week.
a number of times.
I could have gone on and on with that, but it was just like, Jesus. He comes out and says, I'm charging the players. Jerry.
Who do you think's a bigger douche this week, Enos or Jerry?
It's apples to oranges. I mean, they're for different reasons. Enos is because he's just had to be in the spotlight. I mean, it's a legitimate issue that I think is totally overblown, but to do that is just, and to say I want to be, I'm eligible for the draft. It's just like,
So
come
stupid.
on. If you really mean it, cut off your penis. Then you can be eligible.
I agree.
Put your money where your dick is, I guess. Which actually leads into our next topic because
Quite well.
the WNBA has been in the news quite a bit.
A lot.
I mean, much more. People are watching reports a lot more than they're watching games. So we talked about a few reasons to hate the WNBA right now. Which I think a lot of people
and
do.
You're a fan. You're a fan.
I am
You're
a
a fan.
I am a
and
fan.
But it's annoying. So let's talk about it.
I mean, it's horrible marketing. My first one and the big one is the hatred of Caitlin Clark has
Oh,
to be one of the stupid and most embarrassing things I've ever seen in sports. And it plays into the very worst stereotypes of women being petty and vindictive. And I'm not trying to be misogynistic or anything, but the truth is, this is how guys see it. I'm sorry, Alex and friends. It's how we see it. And you don't have to worship Caitlin Clark. You don't have to think she's the best player ever, but the jealousy is insane. And the way they bend over backwards to try and minimize her impact. They say, oh, she's had a big impact. But and so I looked at some facts and they are shocking. Caitlin Clark's been in the league 2.5 years, okay? And in that time, you ready for this? TV ratings for the league up 170%. Attendance up 48%. League pass subscriptions up 366%. Merchandise sales up 601%. Teams are moving games to larger arenas when Caitlin comes to town. Atlanta plays in an arena, it's like 4,000 people. They sell out like an 18,000 person stadium when she's in town. Players went from flying commercial to having chartered jets. The salary cap from 1.5 million to 7 million. The average salary from 130,000 to 580,000.
unbelievable.
Franchise values up 52%. This is all in 2.5 years. You would be hard pressed to find another athlete in the history of sports who's had more of an immediate impact to an entire league financially in such a big way. Everybody's making money. And somehow players react like Caitlin Clark keyed their car. The league spent 25 years saying, why doesn't anybody pay attention to us? Then Caitlin Clark shows up and millions of people are watching. And there's this bizarre mass delusion that the WNBA was doing just fine before she came along. It would be like owning a bar for 20 years, okay? And it's empty every night. And then Taylor Swift walks in and suddenly there's a line around the block and the bartender goes, hey, look at that. They're finally coming for our drink specials. You're a moron. And to drive the point home, last year Caitlin Clark got injured and the ratings on TV immediately dropped 53%. End of discussion, mic drop. And you want proof of how jealous the players are and how petty they are? Okay, keep in mind this year, Caitlin Clark, first in the league in assists per game, third in the league in scoring, and she's like top 5 or 6 in most three-pointers made. Those are pretty much MVP numbers. Yet when the players voted for the All-Star game, because the players vote and the fans vote, the players had her ranked as the 11th best guard in the league. Not the 11th best player, the 11th best guard. Who are the other 10? I mean, Caitlin Clark launches threes from an average of 27 feet. All right, that's her average, which is longer than any NBA player. Longer than Seth, longer than Damian Lillard, longer than Trae Young. But she's the 11th best guard, sure. But if someone walks into your business, all right, and you start making a shitload more money, okay, maybe you don't body check her into the scorer's table. Maybe you send her a fruit basket.
Yeah.
All right. She's drawn more eyes to the WNBA than anything. And the
Absolutely.
problem is what people are seeing is starting to piss them off.
Yep.
That to me is by far the biggest problem. It's just like this would never, sorry, it would never happen in the NBA. Never. They
Yeah.
might try to take down a rookie who's great on the court, but they wouldn't be jealous, especially if it helped everyone. No one in
Oh,
the league
well,
was gone.
they may be jealous, but they're not going to be making comments like they do and acting out like they
No,
do in the WNBA.
no. It's pathetic, and it really just it's bad. It's a bad look for the sport, and I think it's a bad look for women.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
Because it fulfills those negative stereotypes. And let me just add that you know, it, there's an element of race in it, which is a perfect segue to my next point. But don't it doesn't mean like there's no question that the fact that she's white will bring a new fans in there, or the casual fan is. But it's also not that much different than when Tiger brought the occasional the more casual fan into golf. When Tiger came in, everyone loved the fact that here's this guy that looks different and he's dominating the sport. Same with Caitlin Clark. And that's just something that's attractive. And one thing that you touched upon is Caitlin Clark's is doing incredible things on the court, just like Tiger did. And that also is what's drawing people. And again, this is a good segue into the reason why I hate the NBA or WNBA is because I can't stand that everything has become a big drama and everything is political. And again, we're touching on that. So let's talk again about the Sophie Cunningham trans issue. So again, she gave that interview and immediately it drew a lot of criticism. For example, the Cheryl Deer, who is the coach of the Minnesota Lynx, wore a shirt to the next game that said "Trans kids belong." That was at a game. A coach of the WNBA is wearing that when the game is against the Indiana Fever. And one of the biggest problems that the WNBA has is that they have what seems like a very weak commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, and neither
Horrible.
she nor Adam Silver, for that matter, have come out and resolved this transgender issue immediately and succinctly, which is this is a woman, this is who can play, this is who can't. They've been silent on it and just allowed this to spin and spin and spin. Now, you could say, well, they're getting a tremendous amount of publicity, but I would argue that, yes, they are getting a tremendous number of eyeballs, but they are also turning off giant swaths of fans. And with all due respect, their product is not proven enough yet to be able to withstand that. It's not like when people were kneeling during the national anthem games of the NFL, which also was turning people off. But the fact of the matter is, football is an obviously established number one sport. Everyone's going to watch that no matter what. That's not what the WNBA. Another issue that came out to show you a different, the race issue. Once again, involving Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham is playing a game against Chicago Fever. These two teams seem to really be creating the controversies. What did I say?
You said
Chicago
Fever.
Sky. I said
Sky.
Chicago Sky. Excuse me. And so what happened in this is Sophie Cunningham had a breakaway layup, and Dejanay Carrington came up from behind and clotheslined her. I mean, it's just like Kevin McHale with Kurt Rambis. I mean, really knocked the crap out of her. They reviewed the play, flagrant 2, and they threw her out of the game. So what did Carrington do? Well, she went back into her locker room and posted immediately a post that said white privilege, and posted on several threads. Huh? White privilege? Because she knocked the crap out of a player egregiously and then got thrown out of the game like it would happen to any person, white, black, green, etc. It was inane. This was again a huge issue, drew a lot of fire from the right, defense from the left, and actually Cunningham's coach, so the Fever coach, because she previously had been the coach of Carrington, actually initially defended Carrington and then got booed in her own arena and then pulled back on that. My point is, as my son says, the WNBA seems to be about everything other than basketball. And I just think that's a problem, and that's a reason for me to dislike the WNBA. Again, I'll repeat. You have to have an established product before you start going, in my opinion, before you start getting into these kinds of hot button issues, or you're going to be turning off, as I said, huge swaths of fans that you can't afford to. And you just mentioned all these fantastic statistics that their most popular player is bringing to them, and these rankings, etc., and they're kicking the shit out of her too. It's just so stupid. I don't understand why Engelbert doesn't step in.
The final thing about it, honestly, is, and I know you don't watch, but I do, it might be the worst officiating in the history of sports. And as a relatively new viewer to the WNBA, I have to say, I was shocked. One possession, a player gets elbowed in the face and her jaw's hanging out and there's no call. The next possession, someone brushes a forearm and they're reviewing it for a flagrant. The only consistency from one play to the next is that the refs consistently have no idea what a foul is. More than half the challenge calls are overturned. More than half. At some point, rock, paper, scissors becomes a legitimate option in this league. So the reffing is just horrendous. They got to do something. All right. Let's move on to a real sport. Preseason, NFL.
Football. Woo!
Football, oh my god, that first preseason game that they had, the Hall of Fame Classic, some third round pick drives down the field with no time left and they score, and I'm like, that was more exciting than the World Cup. So psyched for football, both college and pro. Let's talk some big stories that we think are big stories in the preseason. Just name a few. Obviously, there's tons, but we're just going to kind of dip our toes into football. Can't
Absolutely.
wait.
Nope.
Why don't you go first? What's a big preseason story to you?
Very relevant to our listeners, and that is the Patriots' contract negotiations with Christian Gonzalez, Pro Bowl cornerback. Just to give some context here, Christian Gonzalez is from the 2023 draft. He is one of 8 players who has been a Pro Bowler. He is the only one out of the 8 who has not signed an extension of sort of the big contract from the original rookie contract. So he's in negotiations with the team, and he's one of the best cornerbacks. He's gonna be paid like the best cornerback. When they got into the preseason, Robert Kraft immediately did a no-no, which is he said to the media, which is what they don't like you to do, that we have already made him an offer to make him the highest paid cornerback in the league. Now that pissed off Gonzalez because he was saying, I don't need you to be doing this, negotiating in the press. And he said, I'm not going to do that. The fact of the matter was that Gonzalez was actually waiting for the contract negotiations of Devon Witherspoon of Seattle, who's a very equivalent player and a perfect comp to see what Gonzalez should do. And what Gonzalez was doing was, I'm going to wait to see what Witherspoon goes because he's going to set the market, and then I want to go above it, versus going first and then having someone immediately Witherspoon go over him. Interestingly, Witherspoon and Gonzalez are represented by the same agent. Witherspoon gets signed. That was 2 weeks ago. Crickets. Gonzalez actually suddenly had a big fall in one of the games and stopped practicing with the team for those 2 weeks. And it was a little bit surprising because he had originally been practicing even though they were going through negotiations. He came back yesterday because this should be easy. Patriots should be able to look at Witherspoon's contract and say, okay, you got $59 million guaranteed. We're going to give you 61. This should be easy. Should not be a difficult thing. Hasn't happened yet. They interviewed Gonzalez yesterday. He went back to practice. Good for him. And he said for the first time, I'm frustrated that this is not done. He also said in response to questions about whether he didn't play the last 2 weeks had anything to do with, was just totally based on an injury. He said, I'm not getting into that, which means he wasn't practicing. Yeah, of course it did. And then they said, are you playing game 1? And he was non-committal. Problemo for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Now, I think they will sign him because they'd be so stupid not to, and they control his rights for the next 2 to 3 years. They don't have to do anything. But you just don't want to have this, especially given that the issues that they had in the offseason with Vrabel and Rossini. It's just not a great look, and it's also not a great look from the Patriots, because you have to say to yourself, okay, what's happening here? Is Gonzalez asking for a ridiculously high amount? Seems unlikely since he's represented by the same guy as Witherspoon. And why would Witherspoon, even though they're good comps, do it for one guy and then the next guy get a hell of a lot more money? Wouldn't that he have a lot of explaining to do to Witherspoon if that happened? Seems like it's probably not Gonzalez. I think, without any information, that the Patriots are used to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And someone being married to a supermodel who makes more than he does and being willing to take less. And they're not used to the fact that, no, when you have elite talent at a young age, they're going to ask to top the market. They got Drake May coming next year in the same way. They think he's going to be a record-breaking contract. So they got issues. I think he'll get signed, but these are just not great things to be happening before this starts.
He's got to get signed for a couple of reasons. First of all, the teammates love him and want him signed. It would be bad for the team. A lockdown corner takes away half the field. It makes every other defensive player better. He's not someone you replace easily. There aren't a lot of those guys in the league.
Nope.
So I think they'll sign him.
I do too.
My story that I've kind of been interested in is the Cleveland Browns. They're a couple, but Cleveland
Oh,
Browns just named Deshaun Watson their starting quarterback. And I had one question, which was why? Everyone is saying Watson won the quarterback competition. But
you
I'm
mean
like,
Sanders? Sanders won it.
no, everyone's saying that Watson won it. They're saying, oh,
Okay.
he won the competition. He's going to be the starter. And I'm like, did he? In 2 preseason games, he threw 162 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Sanders was 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So congratulations to Deshaun Watson for winning the most depressing quarterback competition since the last Cleveland quarterback competition. And in the game that supposedly mattered most, the one they're like, this is the one where they're going to judge them, Sanders went 9 for 11 for 74 yards and a TD. And Watson came in and went 5 for 12 for 36 yards and an interception. All right. It's not a quarterback competition. It's the Browns refusing to admit that they lit $230 million on fire. Since Watson has arrived in Cleveland 4 years ago, he's had 19 starts. He's 9-10. He's never played more than 7 games in a season. He's thrown a total of 19 touchdown passes in 4 years. And for perspective, 20 quarterbacks in the league threw more than 19 last season. Even the Browns owner, Jimmy Haslam, has called the trade a big swing and a miss. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Your owner is essentially saying, yeah, we fucked this up pretty bad. And then comes the fan situation. Watson comes into the Buffalo preseason game and gets booed by Browns fans. Throws for 36 yards and an interception, and afterwards he's complaining that the booing is disrespectful, right? He says he gets more love on the road. It's like, Deshaun, of course you do. Those people want you to play. Steelers fans love Deshaun Watson. Ravens fans are probably starting a GoFundMe to keep you in Cleveland. And look, he's absolutely right about one thing. Fans cheering when he tore his Achilles was shitty. You don't cheer when someone gets injured. But Deshaun seems to genuinely be baffled that Cleveland doesn't adore him. Dude, you rolled into town carrying one of the ugliest controversies in NFL history on your back. The team gave up 3 first-round picks for you. They guaranteed $230 million, and you barely played. And then when you did play, you sucked. What exactly is your bobblehead giveaway night supposed to be commemorating? Nothing. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is sitting there representing the only thing the Browns fans have to cling to. Hope. Is Shedeur definitely good? No. He may stink too. This is Cleveland. There are no happy endings. But at least Sanders is young, cheap, and potentially interesting. Watson is like reopening a restaurant after 3 outbreaks of food poisoning because you have a year left on the lease. And that's why this is such an interesting story, because it's really not Watson versus Sanders. It's the Browns' past versus the Browns' future. So we'll see what happens. But, Todd Monken, the head coach of the Browns, said that Watson is the starter and it's not a week-to-week decision, which is kind of adorable because NFL coaches don't decide what a quarterback controversy is. The fans decide, and the fans have already spoken. So we'll see what happens, man.
Can I push back on one thing? He said there's no happy endings. Seems like with Deshaun, there were about 27 lawsuits that said there were many happy endings.
On the field.
Forced or otherwise.
I want to just say on the field. All right. Well, we're long. So I have more NFL, but I think we're going to wrap it up there, Ross. We'll cover more NFL next week. We'll get into our preseason positions. It's so good to be back. This episode, it was great seeing you, buddy. We'll see you next week.
All right, good one. Woo, love you, boy.
All right, take it easy.